Euronews just came out with this list of the 6 best cities for remote workers, and as you can imagine, as someone who deals with immigration and tax matters, I have some thoughts of my own on this list. So today we're going to break down a list of the best cities for remote workers. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the author of the book Nomad Capitalist and the founder of the company Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. We've got about 1,500 free blog posts you can read there too. Now let's talk about this article from Euronews, which lists the 6 best cities for remote workers, for digital nomads. We're going to get to that in a moment. Now, one thing I always like to pick apart about these lists is I don't think they apply to the 7- or 8-figure entrepreneur, whether you have a big business, whether you're a high-level solopreneur. I also think that they don't take into approach the holistic ideas that we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist, where if you move somewhere, you've got to figure out your immigration, you've got to figure out your tax, and you also want to be in a place potentially that's a little bit off the beaten path. You also want to be in a place where you have good internet, where you have good services, good consumer conveniences. From my perspective, the best place to work and what I've built up is after many years of living this nomad capitalist lifestyle is homes around the world that are renovated, that have nice offices. In places like here in Montenegro, where I have a smaller place, I'm working on building or acquiring a bigger place that has that great office. I think if you're going to be working remotely or working in different places around the world as part of my trifecta lifestyle, you want to have a great home office. I have, and a lot of people I think have gone past the point of, I want to work from the beach. If you're looking at, working at that beach cafe, I think a lot of us can tell you it just doesn't work that well. You want to have a great environment at home where things work, there's no distractions. That's kind of remote work 101. One of the concerns that I have, though, is that good cities that are on this list may not have any kind of digital nomad visa, may not have a residence permit possible. You may struggle to immigrate there if you're not from the country or if you're from the EU in the case of some of the European options. Also, taxes have to be considered because some of the digital nomad visas may have tax incentives, but they're not tax eliminations, right? You may have to pay some tax. And so are you ready to, if you're an American, get into a 2 different country tax situation? If you're not an American, are you looking to be paying taxes in that country? How are you leaving your country? There's a lot of things that go unanswered. And so definitely watch a lot of our videos here to learn how this stuff works. But I just don't believe these lists are holistic enough. Now, let's go through the list. Number 6, for lovers of culture. This is from Euronews.travel. For lovers of culture, Berlin, Germany. Known throughout Europe for its thriving arts and culture, Berlin is brimming with galleries, theaters, and museums alike. Berlin, definitely a very popular place. I've been to Berlin, love some of the food. It is for a certain type of person. If you are a very buttoned up 7- or 8-figure entrepreneur, if you're old school, perhaps as I am, you may not fit in as well as Berlin. And again, Germany does have a freelance visa program. They have even before this whole expansion of remote work. Is it going to be super tax friendly? Not necessarily. So that has to be kept in mind. There's also going to be documents that you need to prove to get that freelance visa. You may have to have some clients in Germany. Number 5, for the quiet getaway, Rijeka, Croatia. I happen to be just down the coast here from Croatia. And so Euronews says remote workers looking for a bit of peace and quiet should seek out Rijeka, one of Croatia's most majestic port cities. Home to sparkling blue waters and a host of cafes and restaurants along the city's Corso Promenade, digital nomads can seek out a quiet spot to while away the hours in the gorgeous Croatian sun. Now again, are you whiling away the hours while you're working? Are you actually working or are you vacationing? I think this is a thing that perhaps, what I found, you travel around the world and you can work while you're doing that, but it's not about sitting on, beautiful palazzos. You can certainly do that. But relying on that as a place for remote work, are there going to be the kind of accommodations that you want? I happen to think where I am now, here in Montenegro, does not get the kind of love that it should. It's more tax-friendly than Croatia. Now, I understand Croatia has a new digital nomad visa, and they've tried to make it pretty tax-friendly. So that could be a solution, at least for the short term. I find Montenegro to be more tax-friendly. I think it is just as interesting in many ways. And what I've done is say, I'm going to have a home in Montenegro in a tax-friendly place, and I'm going to work from an office that I create, because I do fear in some of these resort areas, depending on how much you want to spend, you're not going to get the kind of infrastructure that you want to get. That has to be considered. Number 4, for the hustle and bustle, Sydney, Australia. Now, of course, no list of anything good could be complete from these Western news sources without mentioning Sydney, Australia, or Australia in general. People love Australia. They love Sydney. Nothing wrong with Australia. I love the Australian people. But it's always on these lists. Now, Australia, difficult place to immigrate to. They have had these kind of work and travel programs over the years. They have had different ways you could get in, generally not very long term, and again, difficult place for tax. The article says, for those wanting the energy and fast pace of an inner city as well as easy access to beaches and green space, Sydney is the place for you. Now, not exactly the best place for remote work because of the internet issues, but Cape Town could be the exact same thing, by the way. Are there some dodgy parts of Cape Town? Sure. There's probably some dodgy parts of Sydney also. Rated highly for its remote working infrastructure, no doubt about that, Sydney provides a wealth of opportunity for anyone wanting to start afresh with excellent internet speed and capacity as well as various co-working spaces. You could say the same thing about Romania. You could say the same thing about a lot of places. You could say the same thing about a lot of places in Southeast Asia. At my home in Malaysia, I think I can get 1 gig internet speeds. So you can find these things in a growing number of places. This is why I do believe a country like Australia is a legacy brand. You're going to pay a lot to live there. You're not going to get more. It's okay to pay more if you get more. But I think Australia, definitely in terms of remote work, I don't get this great attraction, especially for a lot of people, it's going to be very difficult to get in. Taxes, a lot of concerns. Number 3, for coastal living, Valencia, Spain. I did spend a month in Valencia, Spain, which was enough to feel, get the vibe of it a little bit. I know people who live in Valencia. This dreamy remote coastal city is perfect for sun-seeking remote workers with sandy beaches galore. It is a nice place. In between shifts, remote workers can visit cultural wonders such as the Silk Exchange, famous for its rich history and intricate Gothic style. So one thing people think about Spain is that, when I was in Valencia, we went out to for a drink one day after work, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we're out of wine. It's the end of the month. We haven't paid our bills, and so we're waiting to get some more money the first of the month, and then we're going to have wine at a bar." People think, "Oh, that's so cute. They're so inefficient. The tax authority must be the same." Yeah, the government's pretty inefficient, except when it comes to collecting money from you. And I can tell you more than one story of someone that has come to me after getting stung by Spain because they spent too much time there. They are experts at figuring out when you owe them money. And so from a tax point of view, Spain has always been a mess. Spain has never really been competitive with some of the offerings of its neighbors, like Portugal, for example, or other programs in Europe. I guess they just think because of their size and their history, they don't have to be, but Spain has not really been that competitive of a place. And so from a tax perspective, it's going to be an issue. And getting in, sure, easy enough, but you're certainly going to pay for the privilege. Valencia is a nice place. I wouldn't say you've got over-the-top amenities in terms of remote work. Cute place, relatively affordable, people like it. Definitely Spain concerns me. Number 2, for working on a budget, Tallinn, Estonia. Nice place. Definitely, I wouldn't want you to go there because you heard of the e-residence program or because you heard of the things they're doing digital. I think those things are great, but I think you don't want to just kind of follow the herd on that one. It's one of the most digitally advanced societies in the world. Estonia is a country with remote workers in mind. I think that's true. Cheap cost of living, comparatively, not so much among the Baltics or among other places in the eastern part of Europe. But Tallinn offers remote workers everything they could want, be it a short stay or a long-term hub. And Estonia does now have some digital nomad facilities in terms of visas. You can do that. Taxes are reasonable, so that's not a bad one. Definitely it's going to be cold a good chunk of the year. Number 1, for the intellectual, Krakow, Poland, named as the best destination for remote workers. This is by the OVO network. Krakow is home to one of the oldest academic institutions in the world, which opened in 1364. Not sure why that entirely matters. Aside from extensive academic institutions, Krakow is known as the home of a great opera. So if you're looking to immerse yourself in academic and operatic circles, why not base yourself in Krakow? Now, certainly there are a lot of places in the eastern part of Europe where you can get that. Krakow is a beautiful city. Poland, again, from an immigration and tax perspective, not my favorite. So I kind of feel that this list, being from Euronews, favors people who are European Union citizens and just have the ability to go to Germany, have the ability to go to Poland. For many of us, that is not how it works. And again, if you're just going to move to Krakow as an EU citizen, you need to register as an EU citizen. And so I think what these things never consider is, because they just figure, hey, everyone loves to pay lots of tax. they never really take that into account. Do I think Krakow is the best number one? I think there's a lot of places like that, which is why I always come back to my Nomad trifecta. What I've looked at, and it was postponed in 2020 for obvious reasons, but what I've looked at is spending an early fall as opera seasons open back up, doing a tour of the opera houses of Central and Eastern Europe. I think that's fascinating. Do I think that's a reason to live in a city full time that perhaps has lesser consumer conveniences than other places? Yeah, probably not. One of the things that I see marketed with these digital nomad visas is come and live in a place where it's warm and it's paradise. Barbados was one of the first places to open up this kind of program, and that was the pitch. Who doesn't want to live on an island in the Caribbean? And so obviously not everyone wants to live on an island, so other countries are following suit. But do I want to live in Krakow full time? Some people do. I think you could probably do better. I think this is really where, if you're working remote, setting up how many bases you could live in a year is going to be more tax friendly, more immigration friendly. Potentially you could live on tourist visas. And you can continue to do that even right now. So I think that I would be adjusting my approach if I'm a remote worker to possibly pick a couple different places, move once or twice a year. If I'm going to settle down in one place, I'm going to be really concerned about tax, and most of these countries aren't going to be on my list. So if you are earning enough to where taxes matter, I think these places probably, in many cases, don't make the cut. So people ask, Andrew, how do I get the most out of Nomad Capitalist? How do I begin my Nomad Capitalist journey? The first thing people do is they start right where you're at. They watch YouTube, they listen to podcasts, they read articles at nomadcapitalist.com. We've spent years creating thousands of pieces of free content so that you can get the vibe from someone who's actually done this, from someone who's actually been in your shoes. What they'll do next, they'll get a copy of the book. You can find it on Amazon. It costs a few bucks, and while it's not going to give you all the secrets, it's going to, again, give you more of the vibe. You're going to learn a lot of the things that I've learned. You're going to learn some strategies you can employ, and you're going to get a lot further in your journey. From there, if you are the 7 or 8-figure entrepreneur investor, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. You can click Become a Client. We're pretty busy these days, but we have availability to help a limited number of people who want to create a holistic plan, something that I think is so important. So if you want to do that, go to nomadcapitalist.com, click Become a Client, learn more about how it works and how we can help you.